For today's training, we're going to be talking about proper hand washing and glove use. We're going to learn how to identify hand washing sinks, learn the proper hand washing technique, as well as proper glove use. The first thing we're going to talk about is hand washing. It's kind of funny because working in food service, we've always understood the importance of proper hand washing, but because of COVID, it sort of feels like the rest of the world is finally joining us in this. First things first, let's make sure that we're going to be using the appropriate sink. So over here, the picture on the left, this is an example of a freestanding large prep sink. We don't want to wash our hands in that. Here in the middle is also a prep sink, but it's a little bit smaller and it's in a counter. It's, like built in. Also, don't use that. But then over here on the right is an example of a hand sink. That's what we want to be using. Think of it this way. The reason we don't want to be using the prep sink, for example, when you wash your hands, you're washing off all kinds of dirt, debris, and all kinds of bacteria directly into the sink. We don't want to wash it all off into the sink here and then a minute later be filling the sink with oranges or grapes or something that we're going to be washing off. We want to make sure that we're always keeping those two things separated. Luckily, hand sinks are fairly easy to identify. Generally, they're going to be small with a single basin. They're going to have paper towels and a soap dispenser. So if you just look for those three things, you're pretty much going to find it. Now let's actually talk about the steps of hand washing. Starting with step 1 is to wet your hands with hot running water. Now, it doesn't have to be scalding. We're not asking you to burn your skin off, but we're looking for not cold. We just want it to be as hot as you can stand. Step 2 is to apply the soap. Then step 3 is to rub your hands together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4 is within that 20 seconds, you want to make sure that you're cleaning underneath your fingernails by kind of rubbing the tips of your fingers into the palm of your hand and making sure you're also cleaning between your fingers as well. 5 is also within that 20 seconds. You want to clean the backs of your hands and into your wrists. Number 6 is to rinse your hands thoroughly with running water. Then number 7 is to dry your hands with a single-use paper towel. And then number 8 is you're going to then use that paper towel to turn off the faucet or when you're exiting the restroom. All right, so I have a little bit of a story regarding step number 8, but I promise it's actually relevant. So in my last job before I came here, I worked for a hospital, and at a point in time, they had this big hand washing campaign. Each department, one person was assigned to be like the hand washing expert, and I was the lucky gal. I got to watch all like 70 plus of our employees. I had to watch them wash their hands and grade them on it. There were like little punch cards and everything. It was a whole to-do, and it's just as thrilling as it sounds. I got to watch all 70 people a minimum of 5 times and grade them. It was great fun. So one of the things I noticed while I got assigned this wonderful task was that the most common step that people made a mistake on was step number 8, where you're using a towel to turn off the faucet. The reason this is so important is because when you stop and think about it, you turned on the faucet with your dirty, contaminated hand. So you just get done washing your hands, you're completely undoing all that work if you immediately touch that same contaminated faucet. Using a paper towel gives a barrier between the two, so your hand wash is still good, so to speak. Now I'm going to show you a video of somebody washing their hands, and I want you to see if you can spot anything that they may have done wrong. Okay, did you happen to spot anything? There were 3 things that were done incorrectly. Number 1, they did not wash long enough. They didn't do that 20-second scrubbing. They also did not focus on scrubbing between their fingers or at the fingertips. And then lastly, just like I said before, they did not use the paper towel to turn off the water. So they just contaminated their hand all over again. Now we're going to watch it being done correctly with a little commentary. Getting her hands wet, but not burning her hands. Getting the soap. Scrubbing. Making sure she gets between her fingers. Getting her wrists. There's the fingertips. Beautifully done, Maddie. Good old rinsey rinse. Paper towel. Killing us because the water's still running, but it's what we have to do. Now using our paper towel to turn it off. You want to wash your hands after using the restroom. I hope everybody is doing that, even not working in food service. Eating or drinking, taking out the garbage, handling money, touching your face, body, or hair, handling your cell phone, any times your hands or gloves become soiled, or between glove changes. One thing I do want to point out, just a little extra tidbit of information about your cell phone here. A U of A study found that phones carry 10 times more bacteria than most toilet seats. That's disgusting, but I thought you should know that. Basically, wash your hands all the time. That previous slide was just a few examples. There are many, many more. That's just some bare minimums that I wanted to talk about. But you're going to do it all the time, more than you ever thought humanly possible, and your hands are probably going to get dry. So my tip of the day is to invest in some good hand lotion. Next, we're going to talk about proper glove use. It is equally as important and thrilling as hand washing. It's important to remember that while gloves are super useful, they're not magical. Actually, I tend to find them to be a little bit problematic sometimes. And that's because people tend to have this false sense of security and cleanliness when they wear gloves. And it can actually lead to more problems because gloves can be just as contaminated as bare hands if not used properly. And it's also important to remember that we're not wearing gloves to protect ourselves from the food. We're wearing them to protect the food from you. One thing that I cannot stress enough is that gloves do not replace hand washing. It's very important that hands are washed when you're putting on that first pair of gloves and every time that you change to a new pair. And I really hope everybody would understand this, but I'm just putting this out there just in case to cover all the bases. Gloves are single use only and never to be washed or reused. Just throw them away. You want to make sure that you're changing your gloves anytime that they become soiled or torn. When you're switching tasks, so in this case, say you were prepping salads for the salad bar, the fruit and veggie bar, and then you switch to helping the cook build burgers. You're going to want to make sure that you wash your hands and change your gloves between these two different tasks. You also need to change your gloves when handling raw meat afterwards, and then also before handling ready-to-eat foods. Ready-to-eat foods is anything that is not going to be further cooked. And then anytime that your gloves could be contaminated, which could be any of those number of things that I also spoke about during the hand washing portion. This is just a few examples. There are plenty more. Anytime you'd wash your hands, you would also need to change your gloves. When in doubt, change them out and make sure that you are doing it often. That's one of the things that people forget to do is you need to be changing your gloves a lot, washing your hands a lot. One thing that I wanted to touch on that I didn't earlier, when I said that gloves tend to be a little bit problematic because people have a false sense of security and cleanliness, well, to expand on that a little more, I think that part of the problem comes from when your hands are bare, you feel them getting dirty and grimy. And then when you're wearing a glove, because you don't feel it as directly, people tend to wear their gloves for too long. So just make sure you're getting into the habit of really looking at your gloves, thinking about you switching tasks and all the things that you're doing. Really make an effort to pay attention for a while, and then that'll set it in motion to become habit. glove changing and hand washing need to be done very often. I appreciate you watching. Come back again for more exciting training videos.